Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Girl Talk Ministry. We're so excited to have you here with us. Joining us today, we have Miss Sydney Nicole Allen here with us. We're so excited. I don't personally know Miss Sydney, but I have been following her on Instagram for a while. She's so inspirational, so encouraging, so uplifting. And we're so excited to hear her story on taking a leap of faith. And Miss Sydney, go ahead and take the floor. And we're so excited to hear your story.
Thank you so much, Tiana, for having me. Hi, guys. Of course, as Tiana said, my name is Sydney Nicole. What do I do? Who is Sydney Nicole? Well, currently, I am an employee at Neiman Marcus. I am on my spiritual journey, learning who I am, who God has created me to be, outside of the noise that I have taken on for the majority of my life. I am a sister, a daughter, an auntie, a friend, of course, and a model. There's so many different, oh my gosh, Tiana, there's so many different things. I'll go all day. But I have a lot of things that I am currently doing in my life. And I'm just really, really excited to just kind of share different areas that I've taken a leap of faith in and how God has led me into those areas and different doors He's closed to open others. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Multi-dimensional. That's how he uses you.
That's it.
Amazing, amazing. So yes, we would love for you to just start by telling us your journey, like even from before taking a leap of faith, like what did life look like before you jumped out on faith, taking that leap? Like how was that the transition from the season? Like just tell us the whole thing. We're so excited to hear.
Oh my goodness. So I will be honest, before I took a leap of faith or any of those things, knew anything spiritual, I was completely out of the will of God. And I can say that now because I understand what the will of God looks like for me. But before, I was just doing whatever Sydney wanted to do. I've never been afraid to just do or go after what I wanted. I've always been resilient and very strong in those areas, but I would take those leaps of faith without God's instruction, without God's leading. And I mean, in my mind, it was going to lead me where I wanted, but it wasn't necessarily where God wanted me. It had nothing to do with my purpose. It had everything to do with what Sydney wanted. And so that was, I would say, up until 2017 is when I first had I would like to say, my encounter. I was living in Durham, and my job at the time, I worked with Nordstrom, and they had relocated me to Durham to kind of manage a department at a Nordstrom Rack. And so I was living there. I was by myself. I had a family member that lived there, but they were in Raleigh, and I was kind of alone. But at the time, I didn't know that God was beginning to do a work within me to kind of transition me into the place of I'm getting her where I need her to be. So
Right.
there was a lot of things that took place in my life. One of the things was I ended up getting fired from my job. That was
Mhm.
devastating. That was so devastating. And I started doing a ministry on Facebook. Like I would go on Facebook and I would just start making videos, just talking about God, talking about like I was on fire for Him. And I didn't understand what was happening within me at the time. I just knew I was hungry. And then that working within me, He was setting me up.
He's
He
so good.
was setting me up. And so I was, at that time I was like looking for jobs, trying to stay in Durham, but there was no doors opening for me there. And randomly I got an email one day from Google, and I had a job offer in Charlotte, like back here.
Right.
Um, and I was like, this is a joke because Google don't email people. You
Yeah.
don't get emails from Google. So I was like, I don't know what this is, but I don't really, I can't take this seriously. But I was with a friend and I was like, should I contact them? Should I just reach back out? And it's like, why not? You have nothing to lose. And I was like, that's very true. So I ended up reaching out to the lady who contacted me, and sure enough, it was a for sure thing. And they was calling me to be a manager for one of the buildings that they were putting here in Charlotte. And I was like, whoa. So I was
Right.
like, all right, like they told me what their pay was, blew me. I mean, everything just blew me out of the water. I was like, okay, so I guess I'm going back home. But the problem I had in that area was like I had to break my lease. So I'm like, okay, I would have to pay a whole, you know how that goes, paying a whole bunch of money out of pocket to break your lease and all of that. And I was like, I'm gonna put it out there, see who bites. There was a girl who did come to view my apartment, but it ended up falling through. So I was like, I don't know what to do, but I needed to leave because my job was starting soon. So a week after I came back home, I received an email from my apartment complex that I had in Durham that someone actually wanted to take on my lease, finish it out. And I was gonna, I didn't have to pay any money, and I was gonna get my deposit back. And I was like, you know what? It's so interesting how God again orchestrated all of this so that there was
Mhm.
a fluidity within my journey back where He needed me to be.
Right. Oh.
Like, but not only that, when I came back, I ended up attending a ministry that my mom was going to. um so funny. And I was like, well, again, I was on fire. I just wanted to be wherever God was. That's what my thought was. Wherever God is, I want to be there. And so I attended this ministry, and they began to speak to me prophetically the first day I went. And everything they spoke to me was such a confirmation of who I
Mhm.
knew I was, but I didn't know in a perspective of God's voice, if that
Right.
makes.
Yes.
And so everything kind of changed for me, and I continued to be consistent with attending the ministry. I've had a few moments where like I kind of stepped away because again, just trying to figure out myself, find myself. But looking back, hindsight, I realized that from the moment that I moved to Durham all the way to moving back, being put into this ministry that God actually called me to, for me to be raised up, for me to be built, for Him to reveal who I was, so that I could fulfill the things that He was calling me to, such as modeling, the modeling industry, the entertainment industry, being a designer, being all these things. I needed to know who I was so that I could fulfill my purpose and my assignments in those areas. And so what it really took was He needed to change the way that I was thinking,
Mhm.
not so much, pretty much in every area,
Right.
the way I saw myself, the way I saw people,
Mhm.
everything had to change. Um, and that was, Romans 12:2, be ye transformed, do not conform to this world. You got to change the way you think so that you may know the perfect will of God. And so that was the journey that I began, that moment in 2017 when I came back home, not realizing that I was being divinely set up the entire time.
Wow. That's amazing. And just how like what really stuck out to me as you were speaking is you said he had to get you alone. And when he got you alone,
Yeah.
how you just began to hunger and thirst after him. And I feel like that's what a lot of us are in a season of currently. Like God is tugging at us and he's wanting us to be thirsty for him, be to hunger after him and to actually like delve into that. Like, what did that look like for you to hunger and thirst after him? Like, was that like reading his word, listening to sermons? Like how did you hunger and thirst after him?
Oh my gosh, everything. Everything. I was taught that, God was outside of me, and on my journey I've learned that God actually is within me. But at that time of my journey, I was looking for him in other places. I was looking for him in sermons. I was looking for him in the music I was listening to. I was looking for him in, even like reading the Bible. I was looking for him going to different churches. I was looking for him wherever I thought I could find him. In prayer, just being in my apartment quiet. I didn't have any furniture because again, I had just moved there. All I had was my bed. So I had this empty apartment, and I would just be in there praying, sometimes on my knees crying, just seeking him, just like, God, what do I do next? What is it that you're doing? And especially after I got fired from my job,
Right.
when you feel like something that you put your identity in, right? You've basically compared yourself to, like, this is who I am. It's pulled from under you. Who am I now? Who am I? But the entire time I had an identity, I just didn't know what it was. And so that was him basically trying to pull me into a position where he could begin to show me that. And that's what my hunger and my thirst looked like. It was just constant. Like, who could I talk to? Who could I have a conversation with about God? It was just, I hungered for him. Like, that's all I wanted. Nothing else really mattered. I had everything else going on in my life, sure, but nothing else mattered for me during in that season, and even now. But it's just completely different for me at this time.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think, that just speaks to so, like I said, so many people in this season, like God is, and it's just amazing to see, like, once we just start trusting in him,
Mhm.
Everything will work itself out. Just how you said about with your lease, like,
Yeah.
you were thinking like, oh my gosh, I gotta, when you break a lease, you have to pay all these fees, and how God just come in and he just sent somebody. Like everything is already
It's
orchestrated.
already done. It's
It's
already done. It's like I look back on the experience and it helps me. What I've learned is it helps bring a strength to us so that when other situations come, we can look back and say, you showed up.
right.
You showed up there. So I know even if it might not, because it didn't happen in the time I thought it was supposed to. I'm like, Lord, I need you to show up before I move out. Like,
Right.
because if not, I'm about to be paying all these fees a week later
Mm.
where I had to completely take my hands off of it because I was out of control. I had no control on what he had already established and worked out for me. He did it in his time because he knew that's when it was supposed to be. So I'm learning now, even talking, how to surrender because I'm a control freak.
Yeah, me too.
For
Me
my
too.
own safety and my own to make me feel protected, I have to feel like I have my hands on it. So if something starts to get wonky, I know how to. But with him, it's not like that. You think you have control, but you don't. But it's such a pleasure and an honor to be able to surrender everything, knowing that he does have everything planned out, orchestrated, established before I was even put here, before I was even sitting in a body. My life has been stamped in this earth. So it's just letting that be, just being and flowing with him.
Mhm. That's good. That's amazing. You better tell it. You better. And even okay, so and it's even amazing how your mom was connected to the ministry, so you start going to the ministry when you come back to Charlotte.
Yeah.
That just speaks in and out of itself. Like God is good. He already knows how to orchestrate everything. So you get back, you start going to this ministry, and so what's the flow of things from there?
So in the ministry actually is in Kings Mountain. It's called Divine Concepts. The leader, my leader is Prophet Tracy Wilson. Um, and so it's funny enough, when I came back, she told me a story. She said, I watched one of your videos on Facebook one day, and she said, I knew when I saw it that I was going to connect with you. And like, granted, she's done my hair since I was a little girl, but the way that we connected, that she would be my leader, that she would be the one, my spiritual mom, to be the one that's a part of my journey of helping me raise me up in this. It was just, again, it just shows how God has everything played out to the point where she even saw my video weeks or months before I even came to the ministry. She had no idea I was coming.
Wow.
So even in that, what spirit was showing, God was showing her in that time, was confirming to her that that was what it was supposed to be. So just from attending and really having a lot of questions, because the things that I was hearing at the ministry was so different from what I've heard before. And so I had to really learn how to adapt to a new message that had everything to do with my own self. That had to do with my own growth, that had to do with me changing the way I thought about things so that, I could align myself to the mind of God. I have the mind of God within me. So there are things that have buried that, you know,
Right.
from past traumas, from whatever I've said to myself, from whatever people have said about me, that has kept me from getting to that point. But this was the journey that I needed to go on so that I can uncover myself, so that I could reveal myself. But it was not easy. It really was not easy to adapt to that, because I'm like, I've never heard any of this before. What y'all talking about? I'm just being honest. Like, what are y'all talking about? But I knew that I belonged there. I
Mhm.
knew within the depths of myself that I belonged there. And so, as many times as I didn't understand, as many times as it was hard for me to receive certain things that were being said, I knew I needed to stay put. And so, it wasn't so much about me. It was, again, God, what is your will for me? Is it to stay in place? Because if I stay in place, there's a purpose for me here. And that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the will of God more than I wanted anything else, because I know what being out of the will of God looks like.
Right, right, right. That's good. So what I hear, two things I heard you say. So God, and God is so good. He's so good. But he had already spoken to the lady over the ministry about you and allow her to see you prior to you even coming to the ministry. And when you came, then she started speaking over you. But it's, that just speaks to how sometimes God desires for us to go ahead and just take that step. And if we don't do that, we won't know what he has ahead for us, because we're sometimes, we're afraid, we're fearful, we're doubtful.
Yeah.
But only if we just take that leap for
Just
him to
surrender.
reveal to us. And it can be through anybody that God will speak to us, or that he's already been speaking to them, but waiting on us to just take the step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even it's so subtle. I mean, it's so subtle because even with me just waking up and deciding to go with my mom to that ministry, I had no idea what I was walking into. I
Mhm.
didn't know. I didn't know what she knew. She didn't even know I was going to be there. She didn't know when. She knew I was coming. She knew that we would connect eventually, but I didn't know when I got home that it would be that. It would be that. So just as subtle as me waking up, I'm walking into a prophetic moment of my life.
Mm.
Like I just walked into it. There was no, there wasn't anything, big or grand. I just
Right.
walked into, I was led into it unknowingly. In my life, I mean, I have not been the same since.
Wow. And then God will send you somebody. And God, he loves relationships. We need
Oh,
relationships.
yeah.
And he will always send you somebody that will continue to walk with you throughout your journey, and somebody that he can use that will pull out of you what's already inside of you, but you don't have access to, because, like you said, we're stuck behind our trauma. We're stuck behind our fears, behind the insecurities and the thoughts of other people. But
Yeah.
he knows how to use someone to pull that up out of you.
And that's exactly what I've gotten. He created a community for me that I would feel like, 'cause you know how like you go into certain situations in your life and you just feel like the black sheep, like you don't
Yeah.
belong.
Hmm.
Like, you just like, I look like the eyeball. He
Right.
created a community for me that me walking through this journey, even if I was doing it by myself, I had people that I could lean on. I had people that I could call, that if I'm struggling or if I'm having a hard time, they understood because they pioneered this journey already. My leader has pioneered a place, like she's already wherever she is in her journey, she's gone before, and so she's able to minister to me through her experiences, so
Right.
she understands I'm not judged, I'm not ridiculed, I'm not condemned. It's just, I get it, but let me help you see it from another perspective. And I
Wow.
know that when she's speaking from a divine place, that's really God speaking to me, and he's also helping me through her walk me on this journey. So it's such a beautiful thing that he's always had me in mind.
Mm, that's good.
He's
Always.
always had
Always.
me in mind, even from the people he's placed around me. I can look back over my life. There was nothing I ever lost, but I've gained everything.
Mm,
I've gained everything.
that's good. So how did as you know, you're hungry and thirsting after God at this point. And so thus far you've moved from Durham back to Charlotte. You're sounds like you're strengthening your relationship with God. So has at this point has your circles of support changed, your friendships? Like what did those connections look like?
You you learn to love people unconditionally, and I think a lot of times we don't realize that we don't know how. Because we'll get into a place of like, that you're in a different season than those that are around you. And in our mind, how we have the cancel culture where we start throwing people out of our lives. And that wasn't necessarily that didn't go that way for me. There were some people who walked out because I felt in me that they sensed that I was changing. They just didn't understand what it was, and neither did I. They just walked out. But then there were people who hung on. And so, of course, you seek wisdom. Of course, you seek wise counsel. Hey,
Right.
should I, have this person in my life? So some relationships did end, but in those moments, I had wisdom in how to communicate, why they were ending, or if I even needed to say that. They just fell off, or some I communicated like, hey, we're going in different directions, and that's fine. I still love you, but it's not cohesive anymore. And I
Right.
think that a lot of times when we get into these spaces of God transitioning us from season to season, we start cutting people off, and that's not wise, because we never know who we're put in this position to impact. And so it's like, that person who I might be out there might be doing what I used to be doing. I
Mhm.
could be that point of impact for them, where it's their season is like, I'm gonna use you to bring them into, right? So that's pretty much, my circle has kind of changed. It's always been a little small because I've always been just very protective of
Right.
me and just my life. But it hasn't changed drastically. It really hasn't. I'm still able to be my authentic self, because one thing that this journey has taught me is I have one life. So that doesn't mean I live a double life. I go out here and do whatever I want to, and on Sundays I'm doing all the extra stuff, and then I'm back. That's duality I've learned. So who I am authentically is me across the board. Me loving God, me walking this journey, me modeling. All that embodies this one person. And so I'm learning to see the mechanics of that in other people. And sometimes it's fluid and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I know when to walk away. Sometimes, maybe I need to stick around a little bit. But that's only if God is leading me to speak to that person, and I'm being led. I'll say that the wisdom there is just being led. And
Right.
if I'm not being led to say or do anything, I stay still,
Mhm.
because I'd rather do no damage than do a lot of damage.
Right, agree. And I love that you spoke to the whole council culture, because
Mhm.
that's just so, I don't know the council. I just, it hurts that, we have to live in a society where that's even a thing, because who are we to cancel
Right.
someone whenever we have all been through our own journeys, our own experiences. But I love that you said you seek his wisdom and you allow him to let you know this is how you need to approach this person, and the next person. And you
Yeah.
allow him to direct that versus you just being the one, oh girl, I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to deal with him. But you
Right.
let God orchestrate that, which speaks a lot to the knowledge of God and allowing him to be fluid in your life.
Yes, yes, you said it perfectly. Allow him to be fluid. He's sovereign in all things. And in order for me to go on this journey and to walk this journey, I have to give him access to everything, every area. When I sit down with my leader and I'm talking to her, she has to have access to every area of my life. I can't just keep one part shut out. I need wisdom in all areas of my life. If I start dating, hey, I'm dating a guy. What do you think? Is this the person I should be putting energy to? Hey, should I make this move? Should I? It's just not about being dictated to. It's about understanding what God has established for you, and that you are protected. And he's given you a circle of people, a community that will help you stay protected, to stay in the place of his will. So that's been the most beautiful thing for me, is that I'm able to keep good relationships and not burn bridges, because it is his wisdom that
Right.
I operate out of, and not so much of me, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does. It does. So now you're in this ministry. You're back in Charlotte. So what starts happening now?
Oh, you know, just trusting, and continuously knowing what he needs from me in every season. I'm currently learning to discern my seasons. Like, I think that's a really important thing, is to know where spirit has us, where God has us in each moment. And that could be, hey, working on relationships. That could be, hey, healing, you know, anything, any area of your life, it could be. So I'm currently learning that. But I'm just learning to flow with him. I'm just
Right.
learning to flow with him and stay put, because I'm very hasty. I can be very hasty because I'm very zealous when it comes to certain things. I get very excited very quickly. And that's when I try to put my hands to things and make things happen. Now, granted, that's not a bad thing. If he speaks, of course, there's action that we must take. That's the partnering our faith with, the prophetic. But it's just me saying, okay, what's my first step? What's my next step? Again, having that wise counsel
Right.
to help me navigate this area, because I'm aware of the fact that you give me one thing, I'm running with it.
Yes, I can agree with you so much on that. You can.
I am taking off with it. So I'm like, okay, all right, God, you gave me this word. Okay, what do I do with it? Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's just believing it. Just
Mhm.
believing it. It'll just in its time. And that's another thing, learning times and seasons, that in its time and in its season, it'll take place. But what happens before that time and season comes up is preparation.
Right.
So I need to be prepared for that word to manifest, so that I'm able to maintain and sustain myself within that area. So it's learning all those things, because we think we know a lot and we have no idea. I say it all the time. I'm a baby when it comes to my life right now, because I'm learning how to navigate these areas the way that God needs me to, and
Right.
not so much in the way that culture has told me to or dictated to do something and all of that other stuff. I'm canceling that out of my life, because being in the will of God requires doing it the way that God is asking us to do it, and not so much of the noise that we hear in the background. That's why I kind of stepped away from social media, because I was like, I need to hear clearly, I need to see clearly without all the other distractions. Being able to recognize the distractions in your life is imperative, because it keeps you grounded. It keeps you just from swaying, swaying back and forth. I don't want to sway. I want to stay sure-footed,
Mm-hmm.
sure-footed in all things. So that, that's my journey right now. That's
That's
my journey
good.
right now.
So two things again that I heard you speak on. So God giving you a word, and at times He might speak something to you, but you have to wait. So speak on like a waiting season or a waiting moment or a waiting experience. Like, what does that look like for you, and how do you navigate that?
Whew. You're knocking at my impatient door. Ooh. So one of the things that I've had to wait for is my modeling career. I have, since I was a little girl, I knew that fashion was just, I didn't know it to what extreme. I didn't know as to what channel. I just knew that I came into this earth and I love fashion. And then I was put into modeling, and that was just something that it was my life. It is my life, right? And I didn't understand. So when I received the confirmation through a prophetic word that modeling was something that I had been, purpose for as a part of my purpose, I was like, all right, God, so this is what we gonna do. We're gonna do this. And he's just like, you gotta wait.
Mm,
And I didn't understand that, because I'm 31 years old. Now the industry at this point would say, when you get past 25, you're old.
right, right.
Nobody's looking at you. Nobody's thinking about you. You've reached your expiration point. And in those moments, those are the true moments where you have to choose, because this journey is all about choices. Am I going to choose to believe what God has spoken to me, and that his word does not fail? Or am I going to choose to believe the fact that the industry said after 25, you've expired?
Mm,
I decided to believe God, and I'm still waiting and believing God. I've had opportunities, yes. I've had doors open, yes. But I
mhm,
realized in my journey that who he has called me to be as a model, not just that, but there's another side of me that's going to go into this industry that's going to make an impact. And
mm,
I can't go in and make an impact thinking the way that everyone else thinks. I
right.
cannot go into this industry and make an impact doing things the way that other people are doing, because then I'll just blend in. And none of us we were created to blend in. We all have our respective places that God has called us to make an impact. And it could be one person, two people, three. It doesn't matter. We don't measure that, but we measure it based on what areas, the preparation part I was talking about. God, what areas are in me that when I
Mhm,
go, if you open the door right now, would do more damage than good. And a lot of it was my identity. A lot of it was my identity. I've One of the biggest points in my life that I've had to heal in was being told that I look like a man, being told just so many different things, being bullied for my looks. I mean, I went through so much when it has come to my identity. I've been attacked so much, and people say, is that possible? You're so pretty. I'm just like, you have no idea.
mhm,
You have no idea what I have experienced when it comes to that area. And so it was a big one, but I can't make an impact and go in and tell somebody something different when I don't even believe that about myself.
right. Mm,
So there was work for me to do. And so I was like, you know what? I have to surrender. As bad as I want to be there, again, I want the will of God more, even if that means I have to wait, because I've already chosen to believe him. I've already
mm,
chose to believe that his word never expires for me, as long as I'm actively in participation with what it is that he needs me to do, which is reform the way that I think. I have
mm,
to change that, because the more I reform, the more I'm digging that dirt up that has covered me up for pretty much the majority of my life. So when I go into this industry, I can be revealed in the way that God has always designed and purposed for me to be revealed. So it's just trusting my journey. But the waiting has been, it's easier now. I won't say easy.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's easier now. But I have my moments where I'm like, okay, God, is it
Right.
time now? Is it time now? No, it's not time yet.
Mm.
Okay. What else do I need to do? What other areas do I need to work on? And just
Mm.
continue to trust him. But I mean, it's a process in itself. It's easier now because I'm getting a little bit more of an understanding. But before it was tough. One of the
Mm.
toughest things, because when you want something, you know how we are. When we want something and we're told no, that's against the law.
Right, right. And then, we'll try to make ways, then that's that controlling part of us.
Hmm.
We try to do it on our own, but God just wants us to wait on him.
That's it.
And you also spoke to you like fashion, and it just speaks to like God will give us desires. How you longed for fashion, like that was something that really interests you,
Yeah.
and it's the things that we don't even realize that are just a part of us naturally that God really wants to use.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how like he spoke to you about modeling and things, and that's something that you already had a desire for
Yeah.
since a little girl, since I think you said 10.
Yeah. Yeah. Since a little girl. And I didn't know, I did not know. One of the things that my leaders always speak about is like, go back to when you were a child and what was it that, you found interest in? Because that's even in that, God is speaking.
Mhm.
I had dreams as a little girl. I dreamed a lot. I still dream. And I
Mhm.
didn't realize why I was dreaming, but now I understand it's prophetic. But I was dreaming, and in these dreams, and I still remember them, which is so interesting. I still remember my dreams as a little girl, just being in those specific places. And at that time, that was even God, it basically telling me, I'm discussing with you what we've discussed before.
Right.
This is really a reminder of what we've already talked about. And I didn't realize that, but now that I see it unfolding in my life and saying, okay, I need to be a little bit more sensitive, because before I was just so passive about it. But again, now I'm understanding how big the divine plays in our lives. That is our life.
Right.
I'm
Right.
gonna just say that, not play, that is our life. Like everything in that area is who we are. But we become so accustomed to this natural world and expecting this natural world to dictate who we are that we become a little bit lost in it. And so
Right.
that's when God is like, okay, I need to change some stuff.
Mhm.
Because if I don't, you're gonna lose yourself. But it's already in you. Like you said, it's natural, it's our nature.
Mhm.
It's built in us. We're built this way. I couldn't change it if I wanted to.
So true. That's
I
so
can
true.
change it if I want. It's in my DNA.
Mm. You give me chills, girl. You give me. Okay, and then another thing you also said was it was a fact and a truth. It's a fact that you are 31 years old, and it is a fact that God has caught that you want to be in this industry for modeling. But God's word says, well, let me go back. And it's also a fact that the industry says at this certain age that this is not ideal for somebody to be in the modeling industry. But God's word said, no, Sydney, you are going to be a model. So, and I think that speaks to a lot of people. Like there is always a fact about something about us, about the place where we feel like where we belong, but we also have to believe God's word in that. So
Yes.
how do speak a little bit about to like the facts and the truth.
Ooh, that's so good. That's so good. That even how you worded that, the facts and the truth. All in all, I'm gonna say this: sovereignty.
Mm.
God is sovereign, and you got to believe that in every situation, even where there is a fact, even where there is a fact, He's still sovereign. He is still sovereign, sovereign enough to say, I get that that's a law of the land, right?
Right.
But everything I've created is divine and it operates with me.
Mm.
So whenever he decides to open that door, whenever time comes for that door to be unlocked, it will. It doesn't matter if I'm 31, 32, 33, 34. Heck, if I'm 50, Whatever it is he has established, I'm going to walk in it. Why? Because he said so.
Right.
That was his covenant with me. His word cannot, that's the one thing that cannot be broken. It's his word. That's one thing that would not fail. But what I have to do is I have to choose to believe. The only thing that will keep me from seeing that is my lack of faith.
Mm.
And there have been things that God has spoken to me about that I just could not believe, because me believing what other things have been, in the facts
Mm-hmm.
that I was seeing. So I've had to make a lot of choices when it has come to facts and truth. But I'm choosing to choose truth through all of it, because nothing about the divine, nothing about God is logical. We try
Right.
to make it logical. We try to calculate it. We try to make it make sense. And I'm an analytical thinker. I love math and numbers, so it has to add up. But when you look at everything, you say, nothing about how my life has been orchestrated makes sense. It doesn't. In a natural eye, it just doesn't make, like, how?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. But that's my reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's my life. So it does.
And that just speaks to God, because it's like nothing that God does makes sense. It's not supposed to. That's how we know it's God. Like, and that's how we can, look back over our life and we can, encourage people and uplift people. Like, I would not be where I am if it was not for God. Like, it doesn't make sense because it's not supposed to. Like, this,
Right.
just shows that God is true. His word is faithful and he fulfills the promises that he has for us without our help. Like, he has the ability to do it on his own.
Everything. And I think about, I'm like, the word grace is coming up to me, because that's just a word that we use all the time, and I've been taught to use constantly. In understanding what the definition of grace is, it is the divine enablement to do something. That means that everything that I do, God is giving me, He is giving me the enablement to do
Right.
it. When I drive a car, it just seems like it becomes like a repeated, memorized thing. But I'm even being enabled in that when I'm walking, even now as I'm talking, it's grace. It is absolute grace that has been given to me. It's grace for me to make a mistake and be able to pick myself back up without condemning myself on this journey, because I know that I have been given a freedom to do so.
Mm.
But if I'm condemning myself, I'm choosing to believe that what God actually did for me,
Right.
it didn't, it wasn't sufficient enough.
Mm.
But that's when grace came in. Grace tells me it was sufficient. Grace tells me that, hey, you don't have to worry about the other stuff. It's covered. It's done. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah, you made a mistake. Yeah, you kind of went backwards. All right, what you gonna do about it? You gonna sit in it?
Mhm.
No, I'm gonna get back up and I'm gonna keep going. Why? Because grace. Grace. That's what I have been. That's what we've all been afforded.
So
Grace. You make a misstep, okay. My one thing that my leader always said, because it 2 years ago, was it 2 years? A year last year or 2 years ago, I had a situation to come up, but I had to make a decision with something I was gonna do, and I was like, I missed it. And she
mm,
said, you know how in Gastonia, the mall, there's exits. She said, you might have missed that one exit, but do you know how many exits come after that can help you get right back where you need to be?
I love that.
It changed the game for me. It changed the game. So I
Mm.
stopped focusing so much on missing it. Say, okay, grace. There will be other opportunities to get me right back where I need to be. Your GPS, you might miss a turn. What does it do? It redirects you.
Got you. I love. Oh, I like that. I like that.
That's
Mm.
what we that's the grace. That's what I get to walk in every single day. That's what I get to wake up with.
Mm.
Grace. Love, like just being so loved to the point where none of that is a concern.
Mhm.
None of that is a concern.
That's amazing. Amazing. So I think it's interesting how, God sets us apart. We're
Yeah.
not meant to be, of the world. We're just in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it always inspires me how you use your social media platform. So in that, what do you think gives you the desire to use your social media platform to uplift God, to speak to his people, and to not just use it to just market, or you don't just use it for yourself, you use it for to allow God to come in and use your social media platform. So just speak to that, to using your social media for that.
One of my favorite words is effective. One of my greatest desires, and I say this all the time in prayers, like, God, the only thing I want to do and be is effective. Wherever I am, I want to be effective. I don't know how that's going to look. I just want to be effective. And I could use my social media just to post pictures, and sometimes I do. That's absolutely okay. But I'm always thinking about the next person. I'm always thinking about, if I share something, even if it's a, what I deem to be a bad situation, what it could do for somebody else. It could give them hope. They saw me cross over, and that might be the one area that they need that help. Like, I was a bridge for them to cross over just for making a post.
Right. Mhm.
That's what I'm always thinking about, right? And so one of the things that I realize, and God has called me to, is being an influencer. But I needed clarity on what that meant. Because you can go and be an influencer. We look at it now, it's just it's out of this world. It's crazy. But again, we are not of this world, we're in it. So yes, God is calling us to these different sectors because he needs us to be able to penetrate this. But the one thing he said was, be authentic. Be authentic, be you. Don't be anybody else. Don't try to, do all the extra stuff that people. Be you.
Mhm.
Show them who you are. Because in me being who I am, I'm giving someone else permission. Not that they need it. They don't need my permission nor my validation. But it just kind of gives them a nudge to just be them. Wherever they are. Wherever they are. Be who you are. Because we're so accustomed to trying to put a face on something that is more accepted, trying to
Right.
put a face on to what is popular, trying to be put a face on what is going to get me the most likes.
Mhm.
I want to be radical enough to say, I don't care about y'all's likes.
Right. For real. Yeah.
I don't care about y'all's followers.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm concerned about that next person. Even if it's just one, I don't post for the masses, even though, yes, I have 14,000 followers. All
Mhm.
of them people are not looking at my page.
Right.
But
Right.
I know there's one person. If I'm being led in that post, Spirit is going to lead them to me. Not
Mm.
so much to me, but to what He spoke through that post for them.
Right. And that's so amazing that you speak to that, because it's like, the stigma just behind, being open and talking about our experiences, whether it be good or bad. But if we just look at it as if, like, I'm not the only person who experiences whatever I may be going through. And God can use us to just be the encourager to someone else. Like, there's so many people who feel defeated. There's so many people who feel left behind, or, nobody can relate to me. But if we just allow God to use us in and through our experiences, so many people will feel empowered to just get up again and to walk in what he has called them to do.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I learned when I first came into Divine Concepts and Ministry that I currently attend.
Mhm.
Um, One thing my leader said was, your ministry is your experiences.
Mm.
A lot of times we think, oh, we open the Bible and we start preaching out of it, but there's a lack of revelation there. But there's a lot of revelation when you experience something and God is talking to you as you are going through that experience. And then he brings along somebody, right, who needs exactly what you just went through, and they see that you made it.
Right.
That's powerful to me.
Mhm.
It's really powerful to me, and it really helps change the way I thought about all of this, about all of spirituality, separating that from religion. It changed everything for me. And so we become more concerned about people. Like, okay, I'm going through this, and no, I don't like what I'm going through because it's actually uncomfortable. I cry almost every other day
Right, right. Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
go through the process of getting to the other side of it, but I know that I will.
Right.
But just for me to be able to go through that, that's one of the greatest rewards. When I sit and I'm sharing my experiences or something I'm currently going through with my leader, and she gives me a story of what she's gone through, I'm like, okay, she did it.
Mm.
I can too. Or when my apostle speaks and
Mm.
she's shared something that she's gone through, if she did it, I can too. We're the same.
Mm.
We're all the same. We're in different bodies. We have different talents and gifts. And that's the dimensions of God that we're seeing in all of us. Those different dimensions of Him. When we look at each other and we all have all these different talents and gifts,
Mm.
that's what I see as dimensions of Him.
Mm. I love that. I love how you use that.
It refocus you. It refocus you from self. It really does, to start looking at other people. How can I help? Is this where I'm supposed to serve? Because we're serving each other. I'm serving. If I use a gift to help you that I have, that's me serving you.
Mm.
That's me
And
serving. But a lot of people don't want to do that.
that just speaks to like the humbleness. Like, our experiences humble us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And to just be able to, I'm not going to say constantly, but occasionally bring up our experiences to someone else. Like
Yeah.
that just, allows the person to be able to say like, wow, God really has brought me a mighty long way. And like, it just, I don't know, it just, humbleness just came up in my mind as you were speaking,
Yes.
because I feel like that's what it does to the person who went through that experience whenever they have to go through that exchange and then uplifting someone else.
Absolutely. You cannot. One of the things that I had to work through on my journey is pride, right? And you gotta be honest with yourself. You can't go through this and not be honest. Like that's you. If you're gonna be real with anybody, be real with yourself about where you are. And so one of the things I had to deal with on my journey is pride. And so when I realized that pride is not a part of God's overall picture, I had to remove it, but because that became an enemy to me. Anything that is against what God has declared, whether it's for me or for the entire being of mankind, it's an enemy.
So true.
It is an absolute enemy. And so it does humble you. It humbles you to say, okay, it ain't what I thought.
Right. Hmm.
God, I need you to keep leading me in this. Like I can't, like I'm so dependent. Like I'm so dependent. I'm not needy, but in the sense of that I am, because I
Right.
need that, again, that grace to walk me through these areas, because what I thought I knew has been completely wiped away.
Mm.
I'm starting over. It's like a newborn coming into this earth. They don't know how to walk, they don't know how to talk. Everything around them is like, what is this? That's how I feel. That's how I feel. But that's a beautiful thing, because then you surrendering any assumptions or presumptions that you have about what should or should not be,
Hmm.
they're gone if you allow them to be. But some people cling tight to them because they don't like the ideal, again, of not having control, of
Right.
not knowing what's coming next, of not knowing how it's going to play out. We don't know how things are going to play out, even when we assume we know. It
Right.
never does. It never does.
Never.
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 No one can ever sit in front of me and say, hey, it worked out that way.
Mhm.
It doesn't. There's always this winding road that we have to travel, and it's never linear. It's
Mhm.
not. And if we expect it to be, that's just too predictable, and that's not who God is.
Right. And as you were just speaking, like it just speaks to like, sometimes God will show us ourselves in order to strip us of ways that are unlike him.
Mm-hmm.
And like how you were speaking of experiencing pride, like did he present you with an experience to show you like, okay, God, I need to go to God and ask God to remove this from me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how did that experience look like for you?
So what I've learned, again, I said this earlier about me learning, going from thinking that God, being told that God was outside of me, that he was apart from me. and knowing that He is within me.
Mhm.
Things I've learned on this journey is meditating,
Mhm.
sitting still, being still, because God is always speaking. We're just too busy and too to
Yeah.
to notice it,
Mhm.
to notice it. So me sitting still to hear, knowing that He does speak, He'll bring things up. And it could be taking me back to a place, just, just taking me back to an
Right.
experience that I had, whether it was a year ago or when I was a kid,
Mhm.
helping me expose some things so that I'm able to, like you said, get these things out of the way, because they're not going to serve me or
Right.
anyone else on my journey, in my purpose, and any assignment.
Mhm.
Doors will not open with me carrying pride. Doors will not open with me thinking that I know everything.
Right.
Doors will not open, and I'm not saying that it's transactional. I'm just saying that this is the baggage that we carry, thing that we can take them and they don't fit.
Mm. Mhm.
They don't fit. So it, because it's a part of our baggage. Not saying we have to be perfect, but every door requires some type of movement
Mhm.
within us. And
Mhm.
spirit begins that preparation within us, even when we're not able to discern it. If we just sit still for a moment, he'll show you, he'll say it, he'll speak to you, he'll send someone to say it. But
Mhm.
you have to be open. You have to be open. If you're not open, anybody can come up to you and say, "Hey, I see this," and you'll get offended.
Right. Mhm.
You would get extremely offended, but you can't even be offended, because when you're open to things of God, we're so conditioned to believe that God will never do anything bad. He
Mhm.
will never reveal that to me. If it's an enemy, yes, He will, and that's an enmity. That's an enemy to who you are.
Mm. And that just speaks to, like, having to have the hot posture of God is only convicting us. He's not condemning us. He's just
Exactly.
taking us to a place, as you were speaking to. God wants us to be our most authentic self. And He knows what that version of us looks like,
Mhm.
but He's just trying to get us there. So in
Yeah,
order to get us there, He has to convict us, not condemn us, because
exactly.
God really wants us to reach our fullest potential that He knows we have the ability to reach.
Exactly. Because just imagine the people that, if you allow yourself to step into that, just imagine, not even just for people, but for you, the freedom that you have when you learn to forgive others. I'm learning that, learning to truly forgive people. It don't matter if they still operate the same way they've been operating before, the freedom you have. Another scenario my leader gave me, and I love what she said. When you keep someone in jail, there has to be a guard to watch them. So you're in jail too.
Wow. Wow.
You can't say you're free when you're right there in the embodiment of a prison. But if you let them walk free, you can walk out. You're no longer on duty.
Mm.
You're no longer on duty. So when you allow yourself to just be open to that, learning to forgive, learning to love unconditionally, learning to just let things go, learning to release your pride, say, "Hey, I need help. I don't know everything. I'm not crossing my arms. You can't tell me nothing."
Right.
How are you supposed to grow?
Mm.
How
Mm.
are you supposed to be taught? Because we have to be taught. The Bible specifically says, "I will teach you in the way to go." But if
Yeah.
you got your arms crossed and you shut down, I can't teach you to do nothing.
Yeah. Mhm.
You think you know more than anybody and haven't experienced a thing.
So true. So true. And that's so I love the scenario.
Oh,
And, like, just being able to forgive people, like, and it's easily said than done. Yes, we know.
absolutely. It's a process in itself.
But, like, what does that look like for you, to be able to forgive somebody regardless of, we forgive, but of course we don't ever forget. We can say, I'm going to forget this, I'm going to forget that, but we truly never do. So, like, what does it look like for you, and how can you encourage someone who's in the midst of trying to forgive someone, even though they've went through these experiences with someone else?
One of the things that, because again, this is a lifelong journey.
Mhm.
I'm currently in a process, without giving too much, of forgiving someone in my life.
Right.
Um, and one of the questions that's presented to me was, what if they don't change? What if they continue to be the same person they've been, the same person that hurt you before, the same person who done this or, failed your expectations? What if they don't change? What if they never do? It's not so much, it's no longer about them. It's now about you. It's about you being free. If they continue to stay where they are, that's okay. That has nothing to do with you. You're two different people. That has nothing to do with you. You get to make a decision based off where God is leading you and who you want to become. And when you start to see yourself in that way, you start to let go of everything that has been a weight on your progression. That doesn't mean you don't walk in unconditional love, because I will love them just as they are. Not with, I'm going to love you if you change. No, I'm going to love you even if you still get on my nerves.
Yes.
I'm going to love you if you still don't listen when I have a conversation with you. I'm going to love you right where you are. That's who I am. That's the ultimate goal. First and foremost, there's nothing else, is to love unconditionally. And we have to learn that. But that forgiveness, you might not ever get to have a conversation with them. God can be telling you to say, no, you don't get to have a conversation. You need to talk, sit here, write it out, whatever you need to do. You have to walk this one out by yourself. And it's hard. It is hard, because you want them to hear you. You want them to know what made you not forgive them. You want them to know. Again, that's ego.
Speak to it. Speak to it. Ooh.
Ego. I got you. You gonna do this by yourself. You have to surrender and say, okay, if you're calling me to do this, I'm capable. Today I might not see that because I'm actually struggling. I'm actually struggling to be sure-footed in what you said. I'm actually crying really hard and I don't know how to stop. Keep going and choose to forget. Just release them within yourself. Release them and say, I forgive you. And you list everything. You say every single thing that you felt within yourself they did. Release them, but you have to really do it. And there comes a time some people are not ready for that, and you have to be honest about that too. If you're not ready, say it.
So true.
You have to be able to say, hey, I'm not ready to forgive this person. But you also have to be willing to sit in that place of imprisonment, not to condemn you, but that's what it is. Just keeping it real, because it's going to be hard either way. Choose which hard you want to go. But if you go this way of forgiving, it gets easier. It gets easier, and it'll change. And what I've learned from one of the processes of forgiveness, because I'm going through many of them, God will change the way you see that person.
Oh, that's it.
He will change. You will look at them and just literally feel love, like just love. Just love. And I'm experiencing that right now. It took me a while to get there though. But because I stayed true to my process and I didn't try to run out of it, even though I wanted to at times, I stuck with it. I look at them and say, wow, I really just I love you. And I mean it from the day, not a conditional love either. Just, you're still not who I think you should be. Not even saying it that way. I just love you. And that's how you show up. And another thing that I will say about that is the process, there's certain things about that situation that will trigger you. It will trigger you. They can say a thing and it will trigger you.
And they know what to say. Oh.
It'll touch your sweet spot. And you find yourself clenching your teeth. Clenching your teeth. But that just means you're still in your journey. One of the sure signs that my leader told me that I have fully, walked through my process and I've come on the other side is, even though that person hasn't changed, what they do won't change me. I won't be impacted by it. I won't want to clench my teeth anymore. I'm like, okay. Not that I'm passive, I just realized that it no longer has power over me. I'm free.
That's
If I
good.
can encourage anybody, just stick with it. Stick with it. If God brings it up into you and say, hey, you have to forgive your mom, you have to forgive your dad, you have to forgive your aunt, your uncle, your friend, whoever it is, go with it.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie and say it's gonna be easy. I can't say that. Because based off my experiences, it's been terrain. There's been different terrains. It's been rocky, it's been smooth, it's been ugh,
Right.
but I made it through
Mm.
and I went
And
to another level.
what I love what you said in that, you were just speaking to, sometimes we expect people to be a certain way. We expect people to be at this certain level or something. But if we just accepted people for who they are, and if we had compassion for people, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes we wouldn't be hurt by them if we would just have accepted them for who they already were and not who we
Good.
expected them to be.
Yes. We don't, I told my friend this yesterday. I was talking to one of my best friends and I said, we don't even realize that we hurt ourselves sometimes. Like
Yes.
when our own expectations fail us, it's not that the person did, our
Mm,
expectations failed us.
mm,
That's what disappoints us. That's what gets us into a place of offense and being upset. You didn't turn out the way. Well, who told you that was who they were?
right.
You chose not to have open eyes to see it. And then from there, be able to say, am I willing to now, how am I going to navigate this now? Because there's wisdom behind everything.
Right.
But we just, oh, I deserve this. Okay, that's great. That's cute. But that might not be who they are. And you can't make or try to change someone to be that. That's manipulation. And if
Mm,
you have that in you, that's another process. You got to change that. This journey is all about self. We want to deflect and put it on other people. They're the reason I'm this way. They
yeah.
okay, well let's step back and let's see, let the accountability teddy
Hmm.
bear come out. Let's have a chat. Because you are now choosing to hold on to that when you really don't have to. Again, we have choices. So
Mm,
it's you gonna choose to hold on or you gonna choose to let go. And that's all God is saying, hey, I'm gonna present this truth, give you some revelation.
mm,
You're gonna choose to grab it, you're gonna choose to keep your fist clutched.
mm, mm. This is good. This is good talk. This is good talk.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. So let's talk about like the enemy
Mm.
and how we God gives us the ability to overcome the enemy and speak over the enemy. But like what has like a situation or a circumstance presented to you? Like how do you handle that and remaining true to what God has spoken?
First and foremost, we have to define what the enemy is.
Hmm.
Because again, we are a people that likes to deflect and we've created the devil, right? And we don't realize that again, our greatest enemy is anything that is in contradiction to what God has declared over our life.
Hmm.
So if God is telling me, again, I'm gonna make this as an example that I'm a model, but in my mind, there's no way in the world I can be a model. They didn't tell me I look like a man, I'm ugly, I'm not good enough, I look like a transgender. No. That thought is now an enemy.
Hmm.
So it's our thoughts that are enemies to us. And we let them play on a loop. We let them dictate our world. And we flow out of it. The Bible specifically says, guard your heart
Mm.
because the issues of life flow from it.
Mhm.
Revelation will tell you your heart is actually your mind, it's the core of your being. Not the organ itself, that's an organ. But the core of your being, your heart to the spirit, is your mind. So you got to change that because that's where the cancer resides.
Mhm.
That's where the cancer sits. And we let that cancer touch every area of our life. We
Right.
let those thoughts touch every area of our life. An opportunity come. You've been told you weren't good enough your entire life, But here God is saying, no, I'm opening this door for you. We sabotage it because, again, this enemy is keeping us from walking into what God has called us to.
Mm-hmm.
So we can start there. And we can first start to define what an enemy is. And we can begin to notate what our thoughts look like. My leaders, they always say, think about what you're thinking about.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Every day, be so intentional about being aware of yourself, because we're so passive and on autopilot. We don't even know what we're thinking. We have no idea. We're just going through life. And we have no idea what our thoughts looking like. And then we look around us and say, what's going on? Our thoughts have breeded our world. We're creators. If we're the offspring of God, right? And God is the creator. We know that. Look what he's done. Look around. That means in the DNA of who we are also creators. And the power of that is in our consciousness and our awareness. What are we aware of when it comes to us? And when we become aware and notice those things, we can begin to change them.
So true.
But that's where the enemy is. Our thought, once that truth comes in, if they do not align, that's the enemy.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you spoke to that, because that speaks to like our greatest enemy. Our greatest enemy is our inner me, because a lot of times we try to deflect and say, and sometimes the enemy is it can be in other people. The spirit of the enemy is in other people, but sometimes and 9 times out of 10. It is in our minds. That's why his word says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We have to speak life into ourselves and what his word says.
Yes. That's exactly it. When the God declares a thing over you, when God has spoken something over your life, literally, there is nothing that can change that but you. And 9 times out of 10, not even you, because he's so sovereign, it's going to happen. It has to happen, because it's not just about you. It's about the people that he has connected to who you are when he placed you in this earth. It's so much bigger than we can imagine. One of the stories I think about, well, of course, favorite characters in the Bible, Abraham, the father of faith. Then you have David, King David. You look at this man's life. Seriously, but you still see how God's word came to pass in their life. But he didn't curse anything around them, right? Even those missteps were blessed.
Jesus.
Even those missteps were blessed. David, even though he adultery, he was still king. Abraham had the promise of a son, right? He had the promise of being the father of many nations. He had so many promises over his life, so many covenants that God had made with him. And even in his missteps, we still saw them come to pass. We still saw it.
God is good.
But we have to shift the way we think so that we can begin to see these realities manifest. These are realities. These are realities. God's word, which is life, that's our reality. Everything else is a prop.
Yeah, I love that. I like that word.
It's a prop, but you have to be able to discern them. And that's when the rubber meets the road. In this process, in this journey, we got to put one foot in front of the other, even in baby steps. Even in baby steps. So it's really learning to lean in, go within yourself, sit still for a while. We have this hustlers mentality where I always have to be on.
Yes, speak to it.
I always have to be on. That might not be the season that you're in. That might not be your season to be on. It might be your season to sit still and be quiet a little while.
Right.
Because you need some instruction, some strategy, some wisdom, and some revelation and all that other good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't mind stepping away from social media because I'm not going to miss it. You notice how when you said, well, before we got on here, that you thought you had missed your moment because I stepped away from social media,
Mm.
but how I was led to go on my social media for just a moment and I was able to answer, we
Right.
don't miss. We can't miss. So I'm not worried about none of that. I'm not worried about an algorithm. Yeah, that's a part of our everyday take. We're in the digital age. I get that. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not consumed with having to show up constantly.
Right.
Because if I am and I'm not getting what I need, which is life, what am I putting out?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being effective. I'm just producing to be seen and not to be fruitful.
Ooh, that's good. Mm.
So this is what my reality is when I say that I am dependent
Mm-hmm.
and I need because that is where my life is.
Right.
It's not me saying it because it sounds good. I live it. I live it no matter what it looks like. And I have people guiding me and helping me go on this journey and
Mm-hmm.
keep holding me accountable to what I said that I wanted. That's what's important because when you say something, understand how powerful your words are.
Mm-hmm.
We understand how powerful we knew. I didn't know. That was a revelation that I had to walk into because we just be saying any and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We learn to hush a little while.
Yeah. Right.
We will learn to be quiet just for a moment and
Mm-hmm.
listen more. Actively listen, not listen to respond. So many people want to listen to respond. Just listen.
Right. Right.
Sometimes it doesn't need a response. It just needs you to listen.
Mm. Mm. So now that you've been on this journey with God for a while, just speak to how it's been overall, and just some advice that you would give to someone who is wanting to take a leap of faith and walk in God's calling that He has over their life, and just how that's been for you, and a piece of advice for someone.
It's been hard, but it has been the
Mhm.
most rewarding thing. And not so much in the materialistic things. Yes, I'm blessed. God has given me amazing, like I'm blessed.
Right.
But who I have become as a person, when I look in the mirror and I see what God has been doing all along because I said yes, you can't put a price on that.
Right.
And I would encourage you to go on that journey wherever God is calling you, whatever ministry He's calling you, whatever leadership He's calling you under, yield.
Yes.
Yield to Him because I promise you the reward is so much greater than you can imagine.
Mm.
The way that when you speak to someone and they see how much you've changed, it's almost infectious. It's almost so infectious that it almost creates a hunger within them to say, I don't know what she got going on, but I want that too. How can I get there?
Mhm.
It's like a domino effect. One touch, and it's like a
Yes. Ooh. Mm.
just one touch. And so that's what I would say. It hasn't, again, it hasn't been an easy one. It really hasn't. And every single day I'm learning. I have not arrived. Anyone who says that, God bless.
Right.
I have
Mhm.
not arrived. I'm at the beginning. I'm at the very beginning. Every season that I'm introduced to, I'm at the very beginning.
Right.
It's not me going backwards because in our natural thoughts, like you're going back. No, I'm moving forward in that. That's where
Mhm.
I'm growing. That's where I'm blossoming. That's where I'm becoming strong. That's where I'm seeing how resilient I am. That's me seeing the strengths of my character that God has given me as a person, as a being in the earth. I get to see those facets about myself that I never would have I had I not said yes, had I not yielded.
Mm.
So I would highly encourage you if you are in that place and you're just like thinking that if you do say yes and you make that leap, you feel like you're gonna lose everything. I'm gonna say this once again: you never lose anything, but you gain a lot.
Mm.
you gain so much. And the ultimate thing is being in the will of God, where you are safe, where you are, there is so much favor.
Yes.
You will be somewhere, and I mean, just
Mm.
the favor of it all. And it's for you. It's for you. So you don't lose anything. You don't, you know, but you gain everything.
Mm-hmm.
Allow yourself to be revealed because the world needs you. Wherever you've been called to, there's a need, there's a demand for you. You are not like anybody else. You are so uniquely made and beautiful. Yes, we are all the same because we came from the same place. We are the offsprings of God, but we're all different in our gifts and our talents. And no one, not even anyone in this world has the same fingerprint as you. Not
Mm.
one person. That should tell you how unique you are. How unique you are. So never think for a second that you are not seen,
Right.
that you are not heard, and that you do not matter.
Mm.
The very existence of you makes things shift in this earth that you have no idea. That's how powerful you are. That's how powerful we all are. And when we can walk in the realization of that, this world will never be the same again.
Beautiful.
Never be the same.
We I don't have words. I don't have words. That was very well said. And like how you were just speaking, nobody's God sees everybody. He knows where we are. He knows the exact moment that we're in, and He will come in and He will meet us right where we are. And that's what we hope this podcast will do, is meet you right where you are, with the thoughts, with the experiences that you have been through, and
Yes,
be able to transform your life and help you just know that you are not in this alone, and you are not the only one who is going through what you're going through.
yes,
In hopes that God will use you to be an encourager and an uplifter and an empower to someone else who's went through or is going through what you have already been through.
absolutely. Beautifully
So,
said.
Miss Sydney, oh no, go ahead, finish.
I
Something
was
was.
just saying, beautifully said. That was beautifully said. So just beautifully said. And I don't know, I want to thank you for the platform that you were obedient enough to build, because I know that there are so many young girls or women or even men probably who listen to this, and the impact from it catapults them forward. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And that's what the whole thing is, just to allow people to reach their fullest potential and their most authentic self. And, once we stop making everything about ourselves, but be, allowing other people to just rely on us and, see our experiences and what we're going through, that's all that really matters. That's
Absolutely.
how God wants to use us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So again, we have Miss Sydney Nicole here with us. We are so, so grateful and so enriched from the wisdom, the knowledge, the insight that she has poured into us on today. And Sydney, we thank you.
Thank you.
If you would like to take this time to just again tell us what you do, your social media platforms, if anybody wants to reach out to you, take this time to do so.
So, you guys, again, my name is Sadie Nicole. I'm so grateful to have been given an opportunity to be on this platform. Um, I'm a lot of things, but
Mhm.
most in this season right now, I am a model. Again, a sister, friend, daughter, um, influencer for the kingdom. Like, there's so many things that I have been stamped with, and I'm grateful to carry that mantle. If you do want to reach out to me, I'm currently not on social media. But my Instagram name is the Sydney Nicole, TheSydneyNicle. Feel free to message me. I always respond to my messages. Again, I don't know how God will lead me. He led me to go on and answer her DM. So, hey, I'm always open to have conversations. So feel free to follow me. I do follow back, I promise. It's just an honor to be here. So thank you all.
And thank you all for joining our podcast. And we hope that you all have a blessed day and allow God to use you. And you are inspired, you are inspiring other people, and know that God loves you. See you all later.